Yes, Beth.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Daily AI Show. Today is March 31st, last day of Q1 for 2026. Hard to believe we're a quarter of the way through, but you made it. You're here. You're here with us to have some good conversations about AI and all the things going on. And so with me to have those conversations today, Beth is back. Welcome, Beth. Back, Beth. Anne is here. Nice to see you, Anne. Andy is here, but Andy's been holding it down for a while, a couple of weeks now. So we appreciate that. And Andy and I were hanging out yesterday together and going through all the fun stuff that came out over the weekend. So with that in mind, welcome to everybody in the comments. And yeah, there's been a couple of news. I know, Beth, you were just mentioning one of them that I actually didn't catch this morning. So do you want to kick things off with the Claude news that you saw?
Sure. So apparently Claude Code's source code has been leaked. And the first thing that I saw about it was really early this morning. People are backing it up on various GitHubs because that's likely to get taken down. Axios's NPM was compromised, and Claude uses Axios. Seems to be part of what was happening. What this does is basically it's the secret sauce behind Claude, right? So non-coders want to know that, coders want to know that, right? Like this is the actual structure, and some or maybe all of the files that go into making Claude Code the Claude Code that it is. But it also showed unreleased features. So in it, there's a Kairos autonomous agent mode, there's a coordinator mode, fork subagent, dream mode, which is a memory consolidation, companion pets. I don't know, but yes, I want a pet, I guess. So it's an evolving story. If this turns out to be a hoax, it's still an incredible hoax, and I don't think it is turning out to be a hoax.
My question is, how does that happen? How does Anthropic get their source code leaked?
Because seriously, it's maintained somewhere. So it didn't get leaked from Anthropic. It potentially got leaked through a compromise on Axios. It also looks like somewhere there was someone who was one of the maintainers of a system. And again, I don't know that that was with Anthropic or Claude. I think that was with their host. But that maintainer's system got compromised, looks like. And this is just one of those places where like your weakest link is likely not the place where you're focusing.
Yeah.
Your weakest link
party or something.
Speaking as an American, and I'm sorry, but your weakest link may be the FBI director's Gmail, right? I mean, like that sort of where your weakest link is the place where someone is not paying attention and way too confident.
Yeah, if it ends up being, I guess we'll find out probably more this week whether it's fully legit. What part of it is, probably half the story. Not a hoax.
Not a hoax. Dream is already out.
Yeah.
Yep. So.
Yeah. So I'm sure Anthropic will be fine, but this can't be great for them. I'm sure they don't want this. So I will have to see what happes, I guess.
And
well,
this is.
Let me just take a slightly different point of view about it. These Claude Code component of Anthropic's overarching system is that part which works so well in the command line interface and runs, coding primarily. And those CLI interface agents, those coding agents, are not so far apart from each other with the main competitors, right? So anti-gravity, has their place in the scheme of things. Codex has its place in the scheme of things. And I know it's got to be devastating to the people who are responsible for maintaining security for Claude code, but does it really change the landscape in a dramatic way, or does it simply reveal what's about to be released and probably could be purloined by more sophisticated hackers in the first place with various methodologies, there are ways to use Claude code with a repetitive series of requests that reveals what's happening underneath, and basically you can reverse engineer what the feature set and what the code is doing that way. So I'm trying to be optimistic about Anthropic. I feel sorry for them because this is leading up to their expected October IPO, and to have all of this suddenly out in the open can't be. It's got to throw a hand grenade a little bit into their release schedule and their PR process, and so they're probably a little flustered and scrambling today.
Absolutely, and I'm coming at it slightly differently, Andy. I agree. I want Anthropic to survive. Yes, but I do think that there is a secret sauce that they have put together that is the experience in the terminal interface that is very different than the terminal interface with Codex or the other similar
they're
things.
pretty close. But yeah, you're right. There's some secret sauce there that makes Claude code preferable over the others to a very large audience of enterprise coders, right?
Yeah. Right. And that, I think,
what were you saying, Beth, before that? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you because you guys were both talking. What did you say, Beth?
I said you guys don't use the terminal in the same kind of way, do you now, Brian? You didn't before.
I am not anti-terminal or CLI, but you can't convince me there's a great bleeping reason why I need to be in the terminal. And I just did a full deep, since you asked, I just did a full deep training session for my internal team where I went over Google AI Studio, Perplexity Computer, Codex, and Claude Code. Obviously, two of those being in a desktop app versus being in a Chrome, right? And in that interface, they are more similar than not. I can't speak for the terminal. In the desktop, in that they are more similar than not.
Which is why I'm harping on this, because it is the terminal experience that is different for people, and it is what is sticky. So if it's not sticky for you, cool, but I don't think you have the understanding of what this could possibly be. It's just a tiny little shift, and if somebody else can make that tiny little shift in a way that feels familiar, that's a potential secret sauce. But cool. That's my that's
a new leak. The Mythos leak, was just a few days ago, right? Okay, so we've got a series of leaks that are happening here, but we'll see. I hadn't even seen any news about what you just revealed, Beth. So I'll be very interested in seeing what the people who really understand what the code base says that's been leaked say has been, what danger is this to Anthropic?
Yeah, and I want to bring this up too, because Greg is saying pretty much the same thing I am, which is 95% of the users do not use the thing you call terminal, right? And I can't say 95%. There's plenty of people who prefer the terminal, but I come at it more from like the consulting brain, which is just where I sit, and I get that is not the user interface that my clients are going to be using. It would be extremely rare for me to talk to an AE or somebody in marketing or anybody across the go-to-market teams in a normal SM, small to medium enterprise, right? SME that is building in the terminal. You're going to find people, don't get me wrong. I talked to a client yesterday and he's gotten really good at Lovable, lovable, right? And so that part of it, I just find that it's few and far between. It's not to diminish what you're saying, Beth, about the power of people who do use the terminal, but the way I look at this is I have seen what Claude has published and the pace at which, never mind the leaks and stuff that happened, but the pace at which it published. Matt Wolf was saying on his AI wrap-up video from Friday that it's something like 52 releases in 30 days or something like that, right? They are releasing at an insane pace. I mean, we just saw
again. Using the terminal.
What's that? What was it?
And they're using the terminal.
I want to talk about the terminal.
No, I disagree with that. They may start in the terminal, but then they get pushed very quickly, even into co-work now. Co-work now is even almost as powerful as code, and code as powerful as the CLI. So I disagree with that.
I'm not sure why we're having this level of the conversation. This is a story that broke this morning. I am aware of it because Ben Bites included it in his newsletter. These are terminal people who use terminals or IDEs. It's that kind of interface. You guys don't. I'm not saying your people should, Brian. I'm saying this story is relevant for the people who do. Yeah. And those are a important subset of people. And Brian, what I said was that Anthropic's coders using terminal pushed the 53 things. They then pushed them to other parts of the interface that gets to that model. But I'm not saying your people should use terminal at all. I'm saying this is a terminal story.
Still, the leak of the Claude code base has import to those people who use Claude code in the desktop app.
Yes, that's my point.
We all use Claude code in ways that we don't realize, even if we're not using terminal. I use terminal and I use the code tab in the desktop interface, depending on just how long or how many instances of Claude code I want to run. You can't run multiple instances in the desktop. You can do that. You can tee up a bunch of different tasks in Claude code in terminal. So it has some advantages, but you're still using Claude code, even if you're using the desktop. And I believe when I use CoWork and I give it a task that requires Claude code, CoWork uses Claude code, even though it may not make me go over to the tab for that.
It still uses bash commands in the terminal.
It absolutely does. I believe there are fewer system instructions that are on top of Claude code in the terminal, definitely than in CoWork, but I think also in the desktop. I'm happy to be corrected in this, but I feel like all of us are basing things based on our own experience.
Yeah.
And I think mine's as valid as your guys. So cool.
I do too.
See how this plays out.
Beth, you said it wasn't a terminal, it wasn't a Claude code story. And I'm agreeing with Andy that I agree that this is a very big story. By the way, they're saying in the comments too, it's a big story. I'm saying if it's a terminal story, it's a code and CoWork story. It's a story across the board. That's all I'm saying.
Can I just chime in as the dumb leisure studies major and just say a couple things about Claude code? Is my sound okay? Am I okay? Okay.
Great.
So here's my metaphor for working in Claude code versus in CoWork versus in Claude AI versus in whoever honestly knows, for example, the 4 different ways I can work remotely with Claude code. However it is that I'm working with Claude code, here's how I feel versus when I'm in a terminal or as directly closest to the source. I feel empowered and more in control, and like I am actually getting better in how I work with AI when I'm in the terminal. And that is probably the only reason why I would recommend to kind of normie business people like me to give it a whirl, to give themselves like, hey, 2 hours a day, 1 hour a day, even just like the habits that we're developing on talk instead of type, right? Some of the behavioral changes where we're feeling more empowered and more in control, I think is not only important for our learning journey with AI, but I also think it's an important intention to set that I am choosing the path where I am in slightly more control of what's happening here with my AI. There's less of a filter. So my metaphor is this. For long distance backpacking, I have to have shoes where I can barely feel the ground underneath my feet, right? Because it's way too many miles, too much repetitive movement. I want to barely be able to feel the ground underneath my feet. But if my big toe, right, gravel, a little divot, I will fall. And I have when I've had shoes on that were too protective. And that's kind of how Claude AI feels like for me now. It feels like, yes, I'm giving you the full sturdy boot, even though you kind of don't need it in this particular case. And it may make you less performant, right? You may walk slower. You may have to, move things out of your way a little bit. That's how I feel with Claude AI now. Like, I'm effective with it. And I'm also not getting particularly that much better with my AI skills when I'm using it because it's too much training wheels or something.
Yeah, I
so
think
normal people should use Terminal
I think,
to give it a try.
A valid point. I mean, what I would tell people is careful how much you let be behind a locked door. Let's just say it that way. This is even something internally with Scale, but I'm seeing it with my clients too. Here's my fear, truthfully, is that it's great that everybody has this tool and they go, oh my God, I can build solutions for myself that make my job easier or whatever. And they might be internally facing, they could be client facing, but there's a lot with these tools, I think, that are going to be more internally facing, especially since it's local files. I mean, yes, there's GitHubs and stuff, but again, you have to go back to like who understands how to use it, who's going to maintain it. It doesn't just magically happen by itself. People can overwrite stuff. You got to be careful, right? So when I look at it, what my biggest fear right now is that people, if left to the wild, the team would just build all sorts of solutions that would be so different because Claude Code or Codex or Anti-Gravity is going to take its pattern to build it. And it's not that it won't be a usable solution, but I do worry that we're going to get 6 months down the road. There's going to be 30 apps that we self-host for, let's say, Scaled or a client or whatever. And we're going to go, do they work? Yeah, they all work. And then you're going to go, who's going to fix that when it breaks? Who's gonna, and like, what is the modeling or the prompting behind it? Now, the answer could always be, I will just ask Claude Code what the prompting is, and I will fix it from Claude Code. Why would I need to know what the prompting is if it works? And there's some truth to that. But I think it's a scary proposition to jump from, to your point, Ann, about like maybe using the terminal or understanding how it all sort of pieces together in a more raw format. That is helpful if you're building like systems, whether it's for yourself, your team, or externally for clients, because I think it's a scary scaffolding problem to have all these built code solutions. I don't care what tool you use. I don't think one is better than the other in that sense. And how do they interact? Where do they live? I just don't think you turn the faucet on and go, everybody go hog wild and build a solution for yourself. Because honestly, a skill is still a markdown file. It's the same damn thing I was doing with custom GPTs 2 years ago. I was just saying that to a coworker this morning. I was like, a skill is not a magical piece of anything, but social media will have you believe a skill somehow is some new magical AI solution. And it's not. It's what we think Claude Code does with the skills. It's how we think the terminal works with those skills. But I can take the same skill and give it to Codex. I can take the same skill and give it to Anti-Gravity or Perplexity Computer. And more than likely, it's going to have no problem reading that markdown file and building something with it for that.
It's going to give you something slightly different. And in each flavor, right? Yeah. It's going to be based on their secret sauce of however they read the thing. But Brian, you and I both know that 95% of people don't use markdown files, right? Like that is a secret language when we teach it. It's not. It's easy to learn. It's easier to learn the terminal Cloud Code, but same kind of thing.
I'm going to confess, I have a confession to make, which is I use terminal, but I don't understand the syntax and the language like an engineer would working in terminal. I take advantage of the fact that Claude Code's 512,000 lines of code let me speak to Claude in terminal with natural language. I do not write any bash commands. I say, give me the command to do this. So there's a translation layer that's available to everyone that makes using terminal not scary at all, because you're talking in the same way you would to a chatbot. And then Claude Code answers in terminal, in text, and will also give you a little thing that's copyable that you can then plug back into terminal that will run the command, right?
Yep.
So that's the way I do that. And the same is true with Markdown. If you sat me in front of a line editor and said, write this in Markdown, I'd go, what? I have no idea how to write Markdown, but I know how to download Markdown files given me by Claude, right? Yeah. And I can use those. I can plug those in anywhere. And I generally favor Markdown as a format now for saving files, which I wouldn't have done before. I probably would have used Word or something, right? Okay. Anyway, I just wanted to make it clear that there's not a need for anybody to get to very high levels of proficiency in using CLI, command line interface, because every one of the CLI applications out there now lets you speak to it as a normie user. And I'm alongside with you, Ann. I'm a normie. I am not a coder.
Yeah.
I definitely
play a coder. I apparently speak a good game. I also connect with.
It's a true confession time here on
I'm building things, and I am looking sort of at the code sometimes. But I had this whole conversation with Claude Code the other day, Andy. I was like, I am performatively permissioning, right? You're asking me, do I have permission to do this in this file in this location? And I go, yeah, that's okay with me. I don't know what I'm saying. I mean, I know I'm saying yes to this, and I know that it feels better to be asked, because there are like 3 occasions where I was like, no, that's a no. Why are you asking that question? But in general, I don't know what I'm saying yes to. I do know what I'm saying no to, right? Like, can I overwrite this file that has this date on it? That's a no. Talk to me about it. You should not be asking me to say yes or no to this question. You should be giving me the parameters that you're asking and the consequences of each answer, right? Like,
and by the way, a little weave into a different news story. Did you know that Codex now has a plugin for Claude Code?
Yes.
And if that doesn't tell you exactly what you need to know, which is, we were literally yesterday, Andy, we were talking about this on the show, you and I, not that specifically, but about multi-agents, right? And how checks and balances. And basically, from Codex's standpoint, there's no reason not to do that. I'm working in Claude Code and I go, hey, Codex, check the code for me based on that system. And there's a plug into Codex and it says, yeah, I'll run that for you through the MCP or whatever. I also saw another news story that had more to do with OpenClaw, but the same kind of thing. So I think we're going to, I know it's like, oh, this system, that system. I think pretty quickly here, it's going to be like, yeah, okay, fine. I use the CLA. I usually stay in Claude Code on the desktop, but I also use Codex plugins. I'll bump over and I'll do something through OpenClaw. I'll come back over here. I'm going to run it through Perplexity's computer. I'm going to come back over here. But this is the way I sort of natural language talk to my computer. This is my process. But at the end of the day, I'm like, but I use 4 different tools because I'm bouncing ideas off of this builder, that builder. Jeff in our comments really likes Codex, and I see why. I've just recently sort of gotten, I wouldn't say I'm deep into it by any means, but I've certainly poked around more than I had any time previously. And this is just
so there's a weave off of that.
Yeah, go for it.
To what Microsoft has in their new Copilot multi-model architecture. Okay, so not multimodal, that's different. Multi-model, and we're talking about Claude having now a plugin for Codex, which lets you call Codex from within a Claude Code session. And you're using multiple models now. And there's a recent post by Andrei Karpathy that I didn't read that I want to try to find, where he says, this is the case. This is the way it should be going forward. You should be having adversarial checks and balances across different models to avoid the mistakes that models can make. And boy, I have a long, long library of mistakes that models have made for me. So here's what Microsoft did. They just made their Copilot Researcher. That's a feature of Copilot that uses two models in sequence. OpenAI drafts the research, and then Claude critiques the outputs. And it's a model council mode that's also associated with this new multi-model researcher feature. And that mode runs side by side and flags where they agree, disagree. So not only does it pit two models against each other to do the research, but then it has a counselor that says, here's the summary of what the differences are between those two. I think that's brilliant. This multi-model orchestration is what you're talking about, Brian. It's what we talked about yesterday. And I've fallen naturally into that way of using it by maintaining no single $200 subscription, but I maintain $20 subscriptions across the full set. And so I can call on any one of them to do work in support of or in order to check the work of another.
Yeah, I love it. And I look to see more of this. We've talked about this many times in the show over the years. As latency drops, as costs drop towards zero, it only gets easier to say, well, have a couple models check that answer. I've always said that, I think, just my opinion, that the true answer to hallucinations, that concept of hallucinations, is simply to ping it against so many different runs, in parallel, that the chances of it hallucinating would be extremely low. Because sure, one hallucination, okay, I ran it through 10 times. Okay, 2 of them are hallucinations, but even at 10 times, 8 of them were agreeing with each other. And that gets to that counselor level that you were just saying, Andy, okay, but now you have the counselor, or we would call it the AI agent orchestrator level, right? Who's taking in all the advice from all the different agents and saying, okay, man, it's like the old shows when I was a little kid. One of these things isn't like the other. Now it's time to play our game. Anybody remember that? What was that? Romper, Bumper, Stomper, Boo? Anybody remember that? Anybody? Yeah. Maybe just
Romper Room. Yes. They never said Beth ever.
In the magic thing, never.
Yep.
Yeah, that's rough.
Never.
That's rough.
Can I?
That's like a whole way back memory that just came to me out of anywhere. But one of these things is not the same, right? That maybe been Sesame Street. Maybe I'm mixing them up. But regardless, that's what I think the orchestrator layer is going to do, right? And we won't see any different, especially when we're using our ChatGPTs or whatever the latest model is. We will just see near instantaneous answers the way we do today. But the difference is it'll have run through multiple iterations and runs, and the chances of it being wrong are pretty slim if you've run it through that many tries. I just don't think we would see the end user's really not going to see any difference. But that to me seems like the easiest way to force break hallucinations is say well, run it 10 times. What are the chances it guessed wrong? Its predictions were wrong from a predictive algorithm 10 times. I don't know.
I think it depends on what the source intelligence is, but I almost agree with you, Brian. I think that part of what we're seeing in research is models converging on answers. And that happens when it's there's some giant corpus of books and documents and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and the number 44.
Right. That is part of the source of most of the systems that were built because nobody thought it was going to work right away. Let's just grab what was free. The story from Anthropic is that wasn't an official decision. Some guy just had it on his computer and added it. But those kinds of things are converging on answers that could be wrong. But if you have specialized knowledge or a particular thing that it's been trained on subsequently, now you're actually and you have multiple agents or multiple models that have that information, I think then you're closer to, yes, all of them are not going to get it wrong, right? Most of them found it on page 7, and somebody found it on page 92, and probably page 7 was correct.
By the way, Karl joined us. Hey, Karl, how are you?
Hi, Karl. I feel like it's important to ask at this point in the conversation about like all of the different features and all the different possible approaches. It's important to ask ourselves, why should we care? Why should a small business owner care that there are a million different ways to do this? Why should they care about dabbling in it when they have something that works? If you were to like make me answer that question, the answer that I would come up with is because you are going to hire people who operate agents, and you're never going to hire someone who doesn't do that, probably, unless they're like your C-suite. So it's important to know how to be an agent operator, or just like an operator working in like a bunch of different systems and running lots and lots of different things at the same time. So you can begin to see, what are you looking for when you bring that person into your organization? What skills are relevant? Because I don't know about you all, but I was not born knowing how to be an agent operator. This is not something that I have any frame of context for. And the only way I know how to figure out how to hire someone to do something is to have some pretty good experiential technical knowledge of it. And now I'll be able to hire somebody who knows how to do what I need them to do, I'm pretty sure. Because it's not like super uber fun. It's very much stretching your brain to have like 10 terminals open or 10 windows open or whatever. But it has been very, very helpful for me, or at least soothing for me, that I will know how to build my company in the future, knowing that I have to hire people who know how to do this stuff and what that actually means.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that goes back to the larger conversation we've had too, Anne, about like, is this the utopia of, maybe I'll work 30 hours this week instead of 40. And it's like, well, having 10 terminals open is mentally draining and can still be a lot of work. And so this, I think it was like a week or two, right, guys, where we were talking about the story where it wasn't a huge study, but it was like, I don't know, 1,000, 2,000 people or something. And people were saying that they don't feel like they're doing less work. They just ramping up. And I'm like, yeah, no, I would be me. I'll raise my hand to that and say that I feel like I do more now with more skills, than I ever obviously have been able to before. And even really recently, I would say in the last 6 months, it seems to have gone from speeding up to ludicrous state, So, that's just kind of, I don't know, that's my experience with it. And I wrestle with that because I go, is this the dream? Is this what I'm ultimately trying to achieve? Or is it just being burnt out because now I run 100 agents? You know? Like, am I any happier in life for doing that? Is anybody giving me an award in a decade because I could run 100 agents? And the answer is, of course not. Of course not.
I think this is where the OpenClaw innovation solves one of those attention problems that we have as humans when we're operating with multiple agents. Read that as multiple terminal windows, each of which has a Claude Code instance separate from every other one running some task. The way Claw works is you get to, and you're building this for your, for your purposes, you have multiple agents that are all now talking to you through typical human communications channels. So you name them so you can recognize what the domain is of that particular correspondent, and it's talking to you, giving you updates, notifications, asking for permissions and all of that in a way that the terminal doesn't. The terminal just sits there silently waiting for your response.
True.
It's not reaching out to you, right? You've got to then go through all these windows. That's not the ease with which the OpenClaw system works when you instantiate a whole host of agents that can do many, many things. Claire Vaux is getting a lot of press in the newsletters, Lenny's newsletter, as well as she has a video out about it. Claire Vaux, a very competent engineer, and she's put together first. The headline of it is, at first I was skeptical, and I didn't. My first experience with Claw was bad, But now I have 8 agents that are running my life, my businesses, and they're all talking to me. And there's a snapshot in one of those newsletters of all of those agents with all of their messages in the morning to her. And basically that is the focused attention that she can use. And this is what you're building for your teams. It's like, here, it all comes into whatever your communication platform is. You want it in email? Great. Karl will send them as emails. You want it in Slack? Great. Karl will send it over as a Slack. You want it in Telegram? You want it in WhatsApp? You can actually build whatever communications interface you want using MCP. So just tell one of your claws to do that. And now it's going to speak to you. And ultimately, it will actually do it in voice.
Yep. And the most recent releases, not the code leak, but the most recent releases of Claude Code equal all of those capabilities that Claude has, right? So they've basically released schedule,
dispatch, so you can use communication channels like that.
So you have that always on communication channel. There's a heartbeat thing that you can set.
Scheduling,
if you run down what Claude could do and what Claude Code can do, they very intentionally release things that let it do that. Now, Claude can use any model you want, right? And there are other technologies in that because it wasn't beholden to a single vision, a single model. It was an open source code project. Hey, Karl.
A claw. Sorry, I just turned this on the thing. Gareth the claw from Toy Story. Hey, I do have a really quick. I was just going to throw this on the screen. It's totally different than anything we were just talking to. This is a hard pivot, but I did find this interesting from Instacart introducing physical AI. And the only reason I'm laughing at it is just look at this. That's why I wanted to bring this up. It's this shopping cart. If you can't see it, if you're just listening to us, it's got a touch screen, which that's nothing new, but it's got basket facing cameras, outward facing cameras, apparently too. It's powered by NVIDIA's Jetson. It's got location sensors and it's got weights and measures for certified scale. It's like, the shopping cart of the future, which it's a cool story, but I look at that and I go, wow, that is physical AI. I get it. How exactly does that roll out? That can't be.
That makes sense to me because the people who are doing Instacart or there's other competitors to Instacart as well, doing shopping for people remotely, they have a big task on their hands. They've got to take a list of things that have been ordered by the user, and now they have an AI assistant to do it. It's not for the general purpose user going into the grocery store.
No, I understand
They're not going to have access to that.
That
this will be something that Instacart supplies to their shoppers.
Okay, so how does that work? Are you allowed to take them out of the store? Who's letting those high-end shopping carts go rolling around in the parking lot when it rains?
Gareth is asking Karl's question.
No, Gareth, it cannot take the recycling out. It was specifically stated in the blog. They made a point of that and said it. No, it won't. Lots of comments coming up. No, I understand that, Andy. My point was it a good thing? Because I don't have anybody shop for my groceries. I'm not throwing shade at anybody. I can quite literally walk to my grocery store in about 3 minutes from here. So there's no need in my life for that. But I have plenty of friends who are in like cities and stuff where that makes sense. Just time wise, they'd rather pay the premium because it would take longer to go park and pay for parking. And I get it, whatever the reason is, amongst 1,000 other reasons for people who have ambulatory issues and otherwise who can't get out the door. What I'm saying is, okay, you created it's a great thing. I get it. It's a super smart. I think it's a smart card. They call it. It does have a name, by the way, which Caper carts. I'm not sure why Caper, but Caper carts is what it's called. And it talks all about how it's going to have all these functions. And I'm like, okay, who is Instacart paying for these and deploying these high-tech carts to certain stores? And how does that work? And the Instacart person shows up and do they check it out, but then don't take it out the damn door, switch it over to a regular cart? Like it looks cool, but I go in practicality, how does that actually work? Because I don't see these rolling around the store. And to your point, Andy, it's not for everybody. Not everybody can grab this cart. So they have to be like kind of signed out, signed back in.
I think it's for pro shoppers, and it's going to be expensive as heck. Look, it has a Jetson thorium in it, right?
I'm assuming.
Okay. That's going to be something that, Instacart, I believe Instacart actually has cooperative relationships with the grocery stores that they serve. So they have special parking spaces for the Instacart folks who come up and they're close to the exits. They're probably, I don't know, right? But I'm just speculating that there's going to be these carts available, limited number. So, the Instacart shopper wants to, try to pick a time when there's not a lot of demand for the carts, because the cart's going to make it faster and easier for them to earn their money.
And by the way, holy moly, can you imagine the data Instacart would capture? Forward facing, reverse facing, side facing, knows where it is, can weigh everything. That's a data. That's the reason you build that, is so you can capture all that data, right, for future development and stuff. Also, just really quick, has nothing to do with AI, but I have a bone to pick with all of this shopping stuff, which has become, getting shopping and stuff has become bigger. On Sunday mornings, usually I get up early and I like to old man drive down a particular couple streets, because they're just very pretty in the morning. It's usually quiet out. And the end of that drive is a Whole Foods. It just happens to be where it is. So I get out of the car. I'm not a coffee drinker. I like to sit in the Whole Foods in the morning and have a bite to eat, a drink, and I go on my way, right? I read my phone. Usually the Daily AI Show newsletter has come out around 8 a.m. So I make sure that looks good. Right. Okay. Well, I have noticed the trend of these fridges and freezers in this particular part of my local Whole Foods that are taking up more and more time, more and more space over where the inside tables are. And about 2 weeks ago, I walked in there and all but one inside table was gone. And it was just a little puny 2-seater. The entire thing has been taken over by the personal shopping or whatever. Now that seems to be much different to me. And I don't know how this whole system works in AI, whatever. I won't get on that subject. But obviously there are workers at Whole Foods who do all the shopping with Amazon 365, all that stuff, right? And then they move it to the fridges and freezers and everything is packed correctly. And then your Instacart, DoorDash, or wherever it is, grabs it from there, loads it into whatever. It's a very, it seems to be a well-oiled machine, but I'm mad at them because they took away some of my seats that I like to sit on Sunday mornings. And I'd like to wag my finger at them and say, what about me? What about my
You are going to make a great octogenarian, Brian.
Yes, I'll fit right in. I can tell a hell of a story. I'll fit right in. But I got to move out of this country because I need to go somewhere where it's still appropriate to say hi to little kids without people yelling pedophile at you or something, So when I was in Greece, everybody, my daughter years ago, when I was in Greece, my daughter was she was 7 at the time. She was everybody's grandchild. And I'm like, yes, that's where I need to live. They would come and pet her on the head, ask her where her umbrella was. Did she know it was going to rain that day? Give her free cookies. I was like, my daughter thought at 7 years old, this was the best place to live in the world. I was like, yeah, because everybody's like your grandma and grandpa here. It's they all look after you that way. So I will have to move somewhere like that, Anne, who can accept that, so I could be like my pop-up that I grew up with, So,
Yep.
We've been all over the place with the studies and stuff, but Karl, I know you joined. You've been a little quiet, whether it's news or just other things on your mind. What's going on? What do you want to share with the Daily AI Show community?
There's one thing I want to share, but so do you all know, you all have, follow Harry Potter? I'm not that much, but I'm sure some of you more than others. Yes? No?
I mean, enough. I know that they made a new series or something. That's about as much as I know.
So what has gone quite a lot over my feeds was how they had one they had Snape as an African American, and it blew up. It's some in a bad way, some in a good way. I don't know. All I know is there's all this AI of Black Snape. That's what it's called. And I was just pointing out to from like just an AI generated video aspect of it, I think it's kind of, I think I talked about this a couple months ago where you have the ability now to interject or put your own story into how things are going, right? So I wanted to share this. Just because it's like, it's kind of neat, right? So for example, this one, a real snake, and today I smash you.
What we're seeing is a UFC fight between two characters from Harry Potter. Is that what that is?
Or
Yeah.
one. Or they both from Harry Potter?
So it's Snape from the movie series and Snape from the Netflix series.
Yeah,
right?
so that
I didn't realize. I wasn't
the
following
double
that.
fight, and I thought that was a pretty cool, like, because some of the other fight scenes were kind of crappy. Like, this one looked pretty, like, even more decent than the other, and how they put that story together, like in that manner, is like a clip that you would see on a regular basis, right? Like that kind of clip you could probably see. And I've seen like a lot of yesterday night I found this TikTok of it was Star Wars like short clips, some of them longer, about like backstories and stories after. There was a really good one about what would happen with Leia meeting Anakin after. And I watched it. There was a very long like scene. It was really, really good. Like the storytelling on that was so good. And you're like, and that obviously just makes the point that like storytelling still trumps whatever the like how good the AI is, how bad the AI is. Because there's some parts you're like, this is kind of weird, like just the scenes, but the story that person told it in a way that moved the scenes back and forth. I was like, this is so good. Like, and it was no fighting, no nothing. It was just like how Leia dealt with the issues of like how, like the Death Star blew up her planet and how she like had a hard time connecting back, but then they kind of came back together. I was like, this is amazing. Like, this is kind of the storytelling that you could do now if you have that storytelling presence and be able to put these scenes together, which are only going to get better, but just how that person put it together. And you have like Anakin as a Force ghost having that conversation. And then I was like, holy, and then it was all these just different scenes. It was like, what happens when this happens, or, and yeah, it was really, really neat how that things.
I was just gonna say, Karl, think about the backlog of stuff. It's not like you need new stories, especially with anything like Star Wars. And I'm certainly no Star Wars expert. I'm sure you know much more than me, but I do know that there's many, many, many books. I've read one from time to time that are like one-off stories or whatever. And I think some of them are considered in canon and some of them aren't. And there's things that all go on with that. But just think, there's like thousands of Star Wars books that are really great stories that have been since like whatever the 80s, that now somebody goes, oh, you know what? I could, with very little money, I could start telling some of these stories through my social media or whatever. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, so it was really neat how it kind of like that that story kind of evolved. So I like, it's kind of in just all the stories that person was telling, like that whole feed is just that person telling a story of all these different characters in between the movies, after the movies, before the movies, and like the backstories. And it's so neat because I'm like, I'm not that big of a Star Wars fan, but when I was like, holy, I'm like glued to it because it's such a compelling way to tell that story. and you can tell that story rather than the novels, right? Like there was all these non-canon novels that came out, but like that person can, like now obviously I'm like, I don't know about licensing. Like I don't know about licensing. I don't know anything about that.
Disney should have some money that they're not giving to Sora now. So I say make it happen.
To the creators. Yeah.
Yeah, you got all this money that you were apparently going to, you were to license and all that stuff with OpenAI, and they shut the door on Sora. So give it to the fans. Let the fans build stuff and do licensing and do a profit share or something like that. I don't know how that would work, but it'd be very cool. Hey, Anne, I know you had something you wanted to share as well. So you want to jump in?
Yes, I do. Totally unrelated to these topics, but in an effort to just kind of reconcile a couple of articles that have been making their route around. One is last week, or maybe it was the week before, there was a big Fast Company article about how people over the age of 50 are in this prime. We're in our prime for AI. And it was a nice like little shot in the arm. People over 50, we're bringing all this experience. We're bringing all these like, best practices and wisdom, and we're pouring it into AI. Well, fast forward to this week, there's a spate of articles making their rounds about how women are so far behind, and we're about to encounter a two-tiered economy where there are women who don't know how to use AI, and then there are men who do need to use AI. But one of my favorite things to do is to take like different news stories and compare and contrast them to help me understand, like, last week I heard this week I heard that. What is the truth? So I want to share really quickly. Oh, darn it. I don't think I can share because there's some weird uploading thing. Sure you want to still leave? Oh, wait, hold on. Time out. I was pressing the red button. This is the share button.
I feel like we did that last week.
Why is the red button like that? It's just like, okay. Are you able? No, you're not able to see. Okay.
Right, here it comes. 1 second.
Yep, Brian.
Okay. This is entertaining for two reasons. In part because this is my effort to get Perplexity to make anything visually acceptable to me. But what we have here is, on the left-hand side, we have the Fortune article, all about how women are at risk, which I believe is true. Like, I believe, of course, that we face higher risk of automation exposure because of the jobs that women hold, and the inequities there, right? More women hold those automatable jobs than men. Okay, cool. As a result, there is lower AI adoption. That's been kind of documented. However, I continue to have my same quibbles with the studies that all say women aren't adopting AI at a whatever rate, because it's such a trope. We really have to put our critical thinking cap on and realize a couple of things. One is the level to which women are going to underreport their usage, especially if they're an employee. So, like, really question those data points, please. But then you look at the right-hand side, where we get to really embrace that 50-year-olds and up have this, hella expertise that we can pour into AI. And what I love about this is, here's the silver lining. Yes, on the earlier end, on the lower, on the like non-knowledge worker side and some knowledge worker, we're at risk. But also in the more powerful, more lucrative, more governing, more influential roles that can be played in the AI everything of our society, women have this incredible gift to bring to the table. And what I see, my own little gumshoe reporting, like I like to share, is we have women over 50 in particular flocking to all arenas of AI. It's not just the ones with the incredible need for discernment, right? It's the builders as well. But if you take that discernment piece and you pour it into AI right now, what we're going to see is more of what we've seen already to date, which is in March of 2025, women's usage of ChatGPT went like a hockey stick. at the exact same time that men's usage of ChatGPT went down. So we held back, waited to see, do we like, do we hate, do we have abject, faith? How bad can this be? How is this going to hurt our the people who we caregive for? And then once we felt to a certain level, then adoption skyrocketed. And I think it's going to be like that in other areas of the economy as well. And I just wanted to share this. If you, like me, have this whiplash feeling week to week about, who's going to win the AI race, like, it's kind of complicated. But if you happen to be in that sweet spot of been on this planet for 5 decades or more, oh my God, and a woman, nothing holding you back.
That's really cool.
Isn't it cool? I mean, I just like to take it. I just like to look at it from a different point of view than
I love it.
Like this Fortune article that made its way around. It's like 5 paragraphs. It's la. It's total fluff. And I'm just like, can somebody please do something a little bit better that we can actually make decisions based on? But yes, Gareth, I love it. Thank you for saying 10,000%.
Yes.
That's
10,000.
What is that? Is that a
you couldn't
million
do geez, and you couldn't read all those zeros super fast.
Put a decimal in there, and
I don't even know a million. I don't know how many that is. That looks like a lot. It's a lot.
Is that 1,000,000%?
That's a lot of zeros on there.
That's 100,000,000%. Thanks, Gareth.
Probably so. All right. Well, I certainly don't want to cut anybody short. Were there any other topics? I know we kind of got into a longer discussion up top in the show. We could always push to any other, minor news stories. Were there any of the major news stories you guys feel like you wanted to get out? I kind of feel like the one Beth you started with was sort of the biggest news story, honestly. You said you had originally heard that from Ben's Bites, and then obviously we had some help in the comments as well, which is super cool. But anything else before we wrap up today that you feel like, hey, I want to make sure everybody knows about this? Anything else I had was minor. I can bring it up tomorrow or the next day. Okay, I'll finish on this then. Gareth threw commas in there, so now that we can read it. So 100 million% is what Gareth is saying. Thanks, Gareth. Our folks in the comments are
Thank
awesome.
you, Gareth.
We love everybody in the comments. You guys rock. And then
we do.
was asking to talk about Meta Harness. I don't know what that is, so anybody else, but maybe we can bring it up tomorrow. But yeah, for 100%, 100 million%, we can talk about that as soon as I find out what it is. But we're the type of people that'll go look, and we'll bring back what we know tomorrow. So don't challenge us with a good time. So we'll go deep dive on this stuff. All right, well then I guess we'll wrap it up for today. I hope everybody has a great day. Don't forget to come back tomorrow. I think we'll have Jyunmi here. Who else is going to be here tomorrow? I think we have a decent crew tomorrow, actually. So thank you, Anne, for hanging out with us again today and bringing all your insights and otherwise to the show. We always love it. Energy is the other word I was trying to think of.
Happy to be here.
We'll see the rest of y'all for the rest of the week coming back. Thanks, everybody. See you tomorrow.